Welcome to On Par with Maury Povich.
This is a little different setting. Quite frankly, I'm at my home in the great state of Montana, where the sun doesn't set these days until about 10:30. How about that? Now, my guest today is an old friend. I'm at a great admirer. He is the host of Pablo Torre Finds Out. Gee whiz, it happens to be Pablo Torre. And he's with me today, and it's good to hear your voice. Good to see you,
Yes.
Pablo. Also, it's really good to see your hair. I like
Yeah,
that.
I was fiddling with it, Maury. By the way, you saying my friend is still a surreal. I feel like I'm on acid whenever I
Yeah,
encounter you.
well, I can douse that in a second because since you've had me and my wife separately on your podcast, Pablo Torre Finds Out, uh, I am distinctly of the feeling that you're more partial to her than me.
It's hard to escape that sensation as well. I must
Okay.
admit. Um, Connie was so you're an acid trip. Connie though is like she she's the best high I've ever had.
Wow.
To just be very blunt with you, Maury, on your own program, and again, thank you for having me. Connie is somebody I looked up to. Can we just talk about her for an hour? Is that what we're gonna do
Sure.
here?
No, but it's very important, that relationship of those
Yeah,
people, of your heritage and my
yes.
wife.
Yeah, as an Asian American growing up, Connie Chung was the only person in the television that even
Yeah.
vaguely resembled me and actually kind of does resemble my mom. And that's a compliment I assure both Connie and my mom to both of them. But it is a history that is a lonely history that her book, which I read, I devoured and talked to her about, which is full of, by the way, that book is full of not just like important historical reflections on the evolution of media in America, it's also first person like juice. There is
Right.
some real stuff there that which she was so candid in talking about, reflecting on what it was
Yeah.
like to cover politicians who, by the way, as her husband, I don't know how you felt hearing about, the time Jimmy Carter put his hand on her leg underneath
Yeah.
a table. But I was
Right.
like, this is a remarkable
Yeah.
view into what it was actually like to be Connie Chung behind the television screen as I consumed her from my living room.
Now, talking about that and your heritage, did you did the hair on your back raise up a little bit this past weekend when JJ Spawn wins
Oh
the
man.
U.S. Open, who is one quarter Filipino?
Yeah.
Mother is half Filipino and Mexican. I mean, do you go crazy with that or not?
So my dad, the parallel here to you is my dad, who is an enormous golf fan. And so Father's Day, US Open, group chat in which we are both celebrating. Look, Maury, something about the evolution of Asian Americans as a whole has been I used to know all of them. I used to
Sure,
have the list, the airplane, sort of like from
sure.
the movie Airplane, like I had the
Right,
list. All the Jewish athletes, all the Filipino Americans,
right.
I had my equivalent. And so the idea that there was someone that evaded my radar that I
Oh, wow.
discovered during, I would say, maybe the most clutch moment, the
Sure.
most clutch walk-off, a 64-foot
Yeah,
putt to win the
yeah.
US Open by a guy who'd never won a major, by a guy who was not registering on anybody's radar, to discover that that same guy was in any way like me, was somebody that we could claim obnoxiously. And to be clear,
Right.
this is all very obnoxious braggadocio from our end. It's just like, that's us. He's ours. Nope. Get away from here, Mexico.
But
This is a Filipino.
but the chest gets really
Oh,
big,
man. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. The
I mean, I
hair
have
on
the,
your
you
chest.
know, with me, with my Jewish heritage and things like that. I mean, I just so seek out those Jewish athletes. It's like I call up all my Red Sox fans, saying, "Well, you got a new Jewish third baseman. How are you going to think about that?" Boston Irish town, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I believe I should do some Googles here, but I believe Kevin Euclid, the Greek god of
Oh
walks,
yes, absolutely.
actually one of you,
Yes,
one in
yes,
your tribe.
yes.
Um, so
But you
the
search, when you know there are so few in all these various sports, you just search for these. And you know, it's like my father years and years ago. As Pablo knows, my father was the sports writer for the Washington Post for 75 years. He was very friendly with Hank Greenberg. But to him, I mean, if you ever saw a picture of Hank Greenberg, he would say, "Oh my, you have no idea. He was the Jewish Adonis. I mean, he was so good looking." I mean, and I said, "Dad, I mean, yeah, but he didn't look Jewish. He just looked like an Adonis." I mean, oh, who knows anymore?
but the line you just I love these lines you casually drop. My father, Shirley Povich, who was a sports writer for the Washington Post for 75 years.
Yeah, yeah,
A Hall of Famer unto himself,
yeah.
legitimately. And by the way, the shared heritage that we share beyond our radars picking up people in our tribes is sports writing.
Yes,
And that when I look, the reason if I can just explain, the reason I got to know you is because of Kornheiser.
right.
Tony Kornheiser, who is my television grandfather, he spoke of your knowledge, and really, I mean, what he is, as I'm sure you've heard, he is in awe of your golf game.
Well, yeah, well, maybe in the past tense, but we won't talk about that for a second. But I do, I mean, everybody ought to know about Pablo. Pablo grew up in New York City. He goes, excuse me, Harvard University. And he, all of a sudden, he starts to, like his parents, his father is a urologist, his mother is a dermatologist, two doctors in the family, and he's on his way to law school preparing for the LSATs. And he gets an internship at Sports Illustrated, and the world changes, right?
It felt like the world was ending. It was changing for the worse. Because I
I
was
can't wait to hear the story that you told your parents when you told them, I don't think I'm going to law school.
I'm still telling them the story. They're still not quite convinced that I've given up on law school. Yeah, man, it's the thing of look, I'm first generation. My parents are from the Philippines, first one in my family born in America. And I have an older sister who came when she was a baby. And so just the presence of me at Harvard was just like he's doing it. He's fulfilling the American dream. And of course, what you do when you pay tuition at an institution like that, when you incur debt at an institution like that, is you go and you do something that feels not just deserving of the academic rigor that you have proven you can handle, but is important, is stable, is safe, is not going to risk the entire experiment of why we came to this country. And so law school was the thing. And, I have what I call now in retrospect, did not have the words for at the time, was basically like a panic attack during the LSAT. And I was like, okay, time to take a gap year. And what I've been doing my whole academic life as an extracurricular was covering sports. Maury, I was covering field hockey and wrestling and
Oh, so you were
crew,
writing for
and
the Crimson? You were writing for the Crimson?
I was a sports writer in my free time for fun because I just
Uh-huh.
love sports and I love writing, and this was just a thing that my friends were doing. And so I was covering like Ryan Fitzpatrick, who was there when I was there.
Ah.
One of the Winklevoss twins from the Facebook social networks. That one of my first interviews, I interviewed a Winklevoss twin because he was a heavyweight rower who was like Olympic level. And it was just, it was a very strange look. The Social Network is an incredible movie. Less incredible is the sort of journey of an obscure side character who is me, who is interviewing those guys for the school paper. But that's what
Right.
my life was. I was there at the same time as Zuckerberg and all these guys, but I was just doing sports and mostly studying. And so law school, to have to explain to my parents, look, I'm going to go to Sports Illustrated because they've offered me this internship. I'm going to be a fact checker there. And it's, again, I love sports writing. I grew up revering sports writers. My parents didn't. Uh, Shirley Povich means nothing
Oh
to
yeah,
them,
yeah.
or
All right.
unfortunately. But the heritage again means quite a bit to me. And so I said to them, I am going to do this for a year and I'm going to apply again. I'm going to take the LSAT again and I'll be back on track. I don't worry about this. I got it. Fast forward
So
and
you,
woof.
yeah, fast forward, you go to end up at ESPN, you become a big star there. You go on Around the Horn a lot. Which, by the way, let me just ask you about Around the Horn.
Yeah,
Do you
please.
know why it was canceled? I'm not too sure. It's kind of vague.
It's as confusing to everybody who works on the show as it is to you. I will simply observe that my investigation, my quest to find out is ongoing. B, there has been no good explanation. It's an active mystery. And C, as you speak fluently the language of ratings, I would advise anybody who has access to television ratings to go see what the performance has been like of the show that they put in its place, which is an edition of SportsCenter, hasn't been encouraging in terms of any discernible logic here. So I remain mystified, Maury Povich. I
Okay.
remain mystified.
Well, as good an investigator as you are, I'm sure that you come up with the
I have a
real
couple
answer.
leads. I got a couple
Okay.
leads. Yeah.
So, I mean, you've won the Edward R. Murrow Award twice. You've been nominated for a Peabody, and this is from a podcast of all things. This is not, your commercial television stuff that people win awards from. You did it on a podcast. So I'm just starting, kind of. Uh, what's the elixir? What's the
Oh, if I may give advice to the man who
sure?
had the longest running show
Right.
in daytime television in the history of America, which is a thing I do like to do from time to time. The only thing that I have found as like anything resembling a competitive strategy is the reason I started my show the way I did is because I wanted it to feel like me in a way that the thing I had not done before at ESPN had ever felt. So could I do this independently? And could I do this in a way that actually made it so that, and this is a dangerous game. As a fellow podcaster, now you can understand this. It's a dangerous game when the things you love to do for fun might also plausibly be work. The lines get blurred, right? I'm talking to you, I'm catching up. It's so great to
Right.
see you through this screen. Also, they're watching us.
Right.
And so I my content brain, I am accused of having terminal content brain, a medical condition that cannot distinguish between friendship and content. So there is that. That is a warning as much as a bit of advice. But the thing that I did, which I think was differentiated, part B of this winding explanation, is that I used journalism to
Yes.
solve mysteries. And
Yeah.
journalism to me, curiosity to me, is something that in the modern era, right? So it's funny to tell this to you. I'm realizing why it's so funny to explain this to you
Well,
because
you, you
because
you said the right word, and the right word is curiosity. And I don't care in what area of this business you're in. Boy, if you're curious, you have a chance.
yes, yes, and curiosity is to me as curiosity as enacted in my case through um, journalism and the degree of difficulty that that implies, which is, hey, make some calls. Like
Right.
do some research, do some reporting. Like so
Right.
much of what podcasting has become, because it's been practiced by people who largely do not have the background, the heritage I keep on referring to of journalism. They practice it in ways that have been very cost effective, I would say, but are less ambitious when it comes to what are you trying to do. And I love so many shows that are in that category. There's no doubt. I love that. But for me, what I did differently was if I take stupid things seriously and serious things stupidly using journalism, then there's a lane here as a matter of genre, as a matter of curiosity that maybe could be invited to these fancy award ceremonies, which would be a nice thing for my parents.
Always back to the parents.
Yeah,
Come on, Pablo. It's
yeah,
always about the parents.
it is.
Everything you do is, will they like it? Won't they like it?
You
So,
felt that though, right? I mean, I
oh,
don't know.
sure.
I mean, come on.
Absolutely. Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Uh, my father, the greatest advice my father ever gave me way back when I was young and starting talk shows and starting to interview people, he used to say, you got a better chance if you know your subject well. So I always thought that if you interview people and you want to be a storyteller, you've got to know your subject. Just don't glaze over it the way a lot of interviewers do. Really dig deep. And which is why I'm going to ask you. You won a big prize at Harvard University for writing your thesis in undergraduate school on sociology. I want to know exactly what the hell you did.
This doesn't come up much because
See, that's what I know about interviewing. If you can have somebody say, people never ask you about that.
I fear that people don't ask me about it because they are preemptively bored.
No, I just want to know, first of all, you end up in sports and you're getting an award for writing something on sociology.
Yeah, so I was a sociology major. This was part of my path to law school, was that I wanted to study in some form, frankly, like why and how America cares about the things it does and why it enacts the laws it does as they reflect that level of care. And so sociology is the study of essentially human behavior and human attitudes. And so for me, I wanted to pick a topic that I found both important, also my curiosity would find it fascinating. And also, I wanted to do something that felt like it was hiding in plain sight. And so, the topic, which does not come up much these days because it is weighty and people are already like, oh boy, I regret asking this question. The subject was child homicide in America. And the
Wow.
question of child homicide in America, this is now children as victims, not children as killers. That's a common question when I begin to talk for 5 seconds about this topic. It's about children as victims, is why is it that our laws reflect a greater punishment for the killers of children as opposed to other such defenseless people, as opposed to other. It gets to the question of like, why do we value people differently when they are victims of a crime? And you get
Wow.
to every strain, right, of biological anthropology, of psychology, of the ways in which we are empathetic naturally to people who seem defenseless, who seem definitionally innocent. We get to the idea of, I mean, frankly, do our laws conform with public opinion? Like if you were to poll people, and so very briefly, because you've opened up a real can of worms here, Maury. My God, you've asked me
Love it.
about my 100-page thesis from college, which I've been waiting for someone to ask me about. What I did was I created not just like a study of like historical literature around child homicide in America, and it is lengthy but kind of sparse and fragmented. I did that, a literature review, but then I constructed these experiments, these polls that I administered to students.
So there's something about you and the way you're conducting your career that I'm a little familiar with. I started out in sports. Okay, I wanted to be a sportscaster. I wanted to be a great sportscaster. And then I don't know if I ever told you, and then I got tired of it and got more into news and talk shows and things like that. And now I'm flipping around the cable stations the other day, and all of a sudden I see Pablo Torre, NBC News contributor. What the hell is this?
That's a fair response. Honestly, it's a fair response. So
What is it? I
So,
mean,
so I as
you're
part
branching out here. Sports isn't good enough for you.
it's as much as I want to have some witty retort, you're kind of on to something. Um, I have been excited always by the ways in which sports were always to me a liberal arts education. What do I
Sure.
mean by this? I mean that, as you know, inside of it, you can talk about everything. You can talk about race, you can talk about business, you can talk about religion, you can talk about psychology, you can talk about science, you can talk about politics, all of it. And so sports for me has always been I was always the guy at Sports Illustrated and at ESPN who was using sports as the way to get to other stuff because everything is sports. If you sort of like look hard enough, it was my view. But then over time, I just realized, what if I stopped the pretense and just talked about the stuff I wanted to talk about through sports just directly? And so a couple of years ago now, this was, I think, June. God, what year is it? 2025. I think it was in summer 2023, or maybe the fall of 2023. I was asked to do some MSNBC stuff because there was a sports topic that came up. And I mean, you know how this works. They sort of try you out to do something, and then they realize, oh my God, this dog can do tricks. And then they just ask you to do some more tricks, and then they realize, oh my God, one of his tricks is being actually fluent in what is happening in America and news and politics. And I am. I just authentically already was doing that as a matter of like guy yelling at my friends like, I can't believe this thing is happening. I was like, again, as my child homicide thesis might indicate, I was always sort of like on non-sports stuff also. So they just trusted me, and now I'm at a point where I do this show Morning Joe very early in the morning.
Yeah, I saw it. I mean, you're there.
I am there. Is a glowing review for Maury Povich. I am there. But I'm trying to, I mean, to that point though, Maury, I'm trying to blend in a way that does not draw attention to the fact that, oh my God, the sports guy is talking about deportations, which I do know.
It's no different than years ago with my father. For instance, on election night, the Washington Post would send him to the Democratic National Committee and their big deal, or the president, or the candidate in his big party. And my father's a sports guy. And you know as well as I do that if you go back in time, some of the great writers of all time started in sports. It gave them the greatest initiation into their careers there could be. And so I'm not surprised that you're on Morning Joe. Trust me.
Yeah, no, and I know, and I genuinely do appreciate you noticing that. For me, look, and you're right. Again, it's the tradition, it's the larger heritage. Like, again, just Kornheiser. Kornheiser was doing culture writing for the Post. He was
Right.
doing more than that. Your dad, of course, being another even grander example. I'm not going to say I'm Ernest Hemingway, but Ernest Hemingway wrote about sports like this
all the time.
Bullfighting and more, right? George Plimpton, go down Hunter Thompson. You can go down the list of just like, if you want. Here's the thing I chafe at.
H.L. Mencken, of all people.
Yes.
H.L. Mencken, who was one of the great editorialists of all time.
Yeah, Muckrakers doing real work as well. So to me, the thing if I can wag my finger, not at you, but at the snobs who look down upon sports, there's been this thing. It's been a funny evolution, actually. It's gone from like sports as a toy department. And by the way, I get it. Of course, it's silly. There's some silliness there. But it's also a yes and question. It is games, but also important stuff. The snobs, I think, have never fully appreciated the ways in which sports actually train you for the more sophisticated, quote unquote, beats that you might cover. And now, Maury, what's so fascinating and funny is that we've come around, especially like on the Democratic Party as a concept, has been struggling, as you may have heard recently, with like how do we reach men? How do we reach young men?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I come over from ESPN, I'm like, all I got is an audience of dudes.
Right.
Like I've been trying to diversify this audience of dudes for a dozen years. It's not been successful. But if you want access to the dudes I got, like, I am trained in that way of like, how do you communicate with sports fans, with men who don't want vegetables shoved down their throat, but maybe they need you to melt some cheese on the broccoli, right? Like, so for me, sports has always been this delicious way to coat what feels to me like nutrition with something that feels more delicious. toy
So
department stuff.
I'm so fascinated by this topic. You're in the middle of a big dust up with another colleague. I mean, and it's about Bill Belichick and
Yeah.
his fiance. I mean, I love this kind of shit. So,
Yeah.
first of all, for everybody, let's go back to the beginning. What did you do? What did you say in the beginning that got Bill Simmons outraged?
I love
What
that
I mean,
me and
how did
Maury
it
Povich.
start? Why would you even mess with Bill Belichick and his fiancee Jordan Hudson, whatever her name is?
So I should clarify that the reports of this is how I become obsessive reporter mode already. The reports of their engagement, I cannot confirm. There are many rumors that they're engaged.
Oh, okay. Did I
But
say? Did I say fiance? Maybe not. Whatever.
but by the way, I say that not merely to be pedantic, but because I am now the keeper of the Bill Belichick lore. And so I am the one person who's like, ooh, they do have a yacht that says 8 rings on it, which now reflects that maybe, anyway, is one of them a wedding ring? All of this stuff is just, it's insane. My life is insane.
Yeah, but how did it start?
Yes. So great question. So for me, it started when I saw the Super Bowl ad. I was watching the Super Bowl. Maybe you've heard of it. And I was watching this Dunkin' Donuts commercial in which it was like Ben Affleck and Matt Damon and Casey Affleck and I think the biggest stars in the Boston cinematic universe were there where they were gathered, and so was Bill Belichick, of course, greatest coach of all time. Mr. New England Patriots, Mr. Do Your Job, Mr. No Distractions. But the woman next to him, I was like, I triple taked. I was like, wait a minute. Is that Jordan Hudson? His girlfriend at the time, who was at the time in her early 20s, she's now 24 years old. And I was like, wait a minute, why is she in this thing? So this was like before the CBS disaster interview that they did together. This is before she really became a public commodity in the way that she had been intending, frankly, for a very long time. This was just me noticing, like, wait a minute. And so I did some sniffing around, some reporting, and it turned out, and I reported this on my show, it turned out that Jordan Hudson, who was again in her early 20s, had been acting as Bill Belichick's agent. So that when Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, this is not an exaggeration, had to go book Bill Belichick for their Dunkin' Donuts Super Bowl ad with a massive budget and all that, they had to deal, they learned, with Jordan Hudson, who was representing Bill Belichick and, of course, spoiler alert, insinuated herself into the commercial unilaterally, or maybe
Right.
bilaterally, given Bill Belichick's
Why?
approval.
What? So what? Why did he even take notice of that? Who gives a
So,
shit?
a fair follow-up question. What was different and interesting to me about this was not merely the age gap relationship of like, wow, guy in his 70s dating someone in her 20s. That wasn't it. It was the fact that Bill Belichick had, at this point, been already pivoting Maury from something that we knew him to be, which was the gruff paragon of
Yeah.
discipline, privacy. Hey, media, go screw yourself. I'm not answering questions. I am not a public figure. I am going to show up here and you're going to like it when I don't tell you anything. He was the archetype in American life of that way of public living. And when he's in the Super Bowl ad, it's the culmination also of the previous year of his life in which he had become a guy who, like both of us, had started podcasting, who was now doing a half dozen media ventures that he had never done before, which was stunning on its own right. But the question always was, why is he doing this? Of course, he was thrown out of the NFL. He wanted a job. He didn't get one. That's one part of it. But the other part is he was now being advised clearly by someone who was helping him manage what it means to live in public. And that person, bless you, that person was in fact Jordan Hudson. And so the fact that she is acting as his agent, putting herself in the commercial, and also I would learn is being the COO of his production company and is the voice in his ear to the fear and tremoring anxiety of his family, his inner circle of coaches, to the University of North Carolina, it's this idea that this guy who was one thing is now the opposite thing, and Jordan Hudson is the person that explains the backstage story of why and how that is. Um,
Okay.
so
And
yeah,
then Bill Simmons, who I'm sure you know. I mean,
yeah.
he, he's big. He's a big
Yes.
podcaster. He runs the Ringer. I mean, and he says, I've never seen anybody dine on a stupider story for a week and a half while pretending you're a journalist.
It was the pretending you're a journalist part, which I've told Bill, where I was like, listen, I eat at the all you can eat buffet of stupidity. I am no stranger to. I dine without apology at such tables. Um, but I am, and this is again the yes and story of like, but I am gonna do this with my journalistic principles and rigor. I am actively reporting. I am actively checking my sources. I am actively researching, and I am actively acting ethically. Like these are degrees of difficulty that, as you know, it does make a difference, right? The job is harder, but it can be more rewarding in the ways that I've gas bagged to you about already in this conversation. Um, so when he said that, it was that last part where I was like, those are fighting words, unfortunately. Um,
So you talked?
Yeah, well, this is the sadder part, which I hesitate to explain to you, which is that this clip got sent around and went viral of him saying that on a show that he did, and I tweeted, I quote tweeted a summary of what he had said that someone had posted, and I basically said in so many words, if you think I'm a pretend journalist, then you should have no problem talking to me. I have some questions for you, unless you're too afraid.
Oh,
And so, again, I'm in my feelings. I'm not necessarily proud of the angle of my back was vertical. Okay, I was set back. So what happens is, to speed run through some of this, is that Bill calls me. We start fundamentally just yelling at each other on the phone. We do have a zillion mutual friends, by the way, which is why all of this is also very dumb, on both of our parts. But it ends in the way that any good duel in 2025 must end, which is he invites me onto his podcast. And so we have it out. And that's the thing that people can watch and see. And it did feel, by the way, Maury, like, and again, forgive.
I'm really pissed off. I wanted the damn thing to last forever.
You're not alone.
Very upset. You're
You're not
upset at
alone.
me.
If we
You
were,
would
if
have
we,
done
if I was better at this, I would have milked it.
it.
We would have escalated it. I could have gotten you involved.
Yeah,
We
right.
could have had that Anchorman level fight
Yeah,
where
exactly.
it's like me and
Oh,
Kornheiser
would
and
have
Maury
been,
Povich
yeah,
walking
would have
down
been
an
great.
alley. Oh
Yeah.
my God. I regret everything about how this actually did go. Now that I think about the possibilities of how we could have made this so much, we could have monetized
See,
this.
that's the
Ugh.
problem. Journalists have no idea about branding.
You're so right. You're so right. We
All
could have
right.
done a series of reveals. We could have,
All right.
oh my God.
I'm going back to your sports life. Okay.
Please, please.
I've got this game. All right. We're going to play this game.
Hmm.
I'm going to throw out at you all these marvelous sports casting lines at events that announcers did. You tell me the announcer of
Oh
these
boy.
particular calls. Okay. We didn't make it that hard. You should
We'll
be able to
see.
handle
We'll
this.
see.
You
We'll
should
see
be
how
able
much
to
I am
handle this.
embarrassed by this.
Okay.
Yeah.
World champions, team of the decade, most successful franchise of the century.
Who is that?
So that's Costas.
Oh, right. See, I told you this was easy. I told these people it was too easy.
No, I mean, I was just texting with Bob the other day. I mean, this is not even a brag.
Okay.
I was Bob,
So
you know.
you're friendly with Bob?
Well, I look up to him, and he was recently, he did a guest spot on my show
Oh,
because
good.
we were talking about the '98 Bulls, in fact.
So Costas has been so good to the Shirley Povich Center for Sports Journalism at the University of Maryland. He's been there a lot. In fact, one time at the symposium, it probably was the moment when he decided not to do any football because he started talking about injuries and football and how it's terrible and everything else. And I think that was the last year he ever did football. He basically found a way to bow out of it. But the great Costas, years and years ago, believe it or not, Costas used to have a radio show on Sunday nights. And he had me and my father on.
Oh, wow.
And he was so impressed with my father, of course, because Bob's greatest love is baseball. And here my father is talking about my father interviewing Babe Ruth and Walter Johnson and all these greats. And Bob is saying, Shirley Povich is the only person left in the world who has interviewed Babe Ruth, Walter Johnson, and we have his son, Maury, whose greatest interview was Joey Buttafuoco and Amy Fisher.
Oh, God. Both, by the way, you both interviewed subjects who took some tremendous cuts.
Yeah, that's true.
Tremendous
that's right.
cuts.
Oh, wow.
But that, by the way, just to circle to close the loop, though, so to speak. So that, I believe the clip you played was, I mean, I grew up a Yankee fan. That was the New York Yankees as called by Bob Costas. It must have been in '99 when they beat the Braves, probably. I think that was.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, here's clip 2.
That's a terrible idea.
Oh, we know. I mean, look, that's Charles. That's our friend Charles.
Of course.
Our friend
Charles is the best.
He, by the way, no one is. So I am fascinated by this question. I think you would be great on this question. Who is good at being famous? Charles Barkley is on the medal stand.
No question. I mean, I don't know of a better television personality in the history of sports than Charles.
I agree. I agree.
It's unbelievable.
He gets to do things no one else can do, and he has fun in a way that's infectious, and everybody smiles when they see him. It's just a remarkable thing.
And you forgive him for everything.
He has so many terrible opinions. I want to make this clear. When I say this, it is not me co-signing a single thing he's ever said. He doesn't even really research anymore anything. He's anti-journalistic. And yet, I feel this way, which is the greatest compliment I can pay him.
Right. All right, here we go. The next one.
Next to me is saying it. You may hear him. Down goes Frazier. Down goes Frazier.
Oh, yeah. Come on. Come on. I mean, by the way, the episode I wanted to do, I wanted to do, look, you weren't there for that, right? You weren't there for Ali Frazier.
I was.
Of course you were. God, I love when I can just throw you
I
live
was.
and you're like,
I covered it. I covered it. I did a documentary before the fight with Ali and Frazier. That Jerry Perenchio, who was running the whole closed TV situation, didn't allow them to, didn't allow them to do any interviews. And my father got me. One of his great friends was Angelo Dundee. I go to the Fifth Street Gym in Miami and sneak in and interview Ali before the fight, and then I go up to Yancey Durham, who was Frazier's manager and trainer, and I get Joe on the end, and I do this documentary, and I covered the fight. Yeah,
amazing. I mean, look, of course, but that's Howard Cosell, obviously. I mean, what I wanted to do with Cosell, look, maybe did you know Cosell?
Let me tell you how I knew Howard. Howard wrote this great autobiography called Tell It Like It Is.
Yes.
I'm doing a talk show in Washington. He comes on the show to promote the book. My introduction was Howard Cosell, a man who changed his name and wears a toupee, wrote a book called Tell It Like It Is. He never forgave me.
I was going to say, I don't know if Cosell has a sense of humor about himself the way Barkley does.
No, not at all.
But by the way, like when you talk about the greatest, Ali, obviously in his category, appointed himself with that. Cosell, he was before my time, but I have done enough reading and listening to be in awe of. By the way, speaking of fame, I didn't realize, Maury, how famous Howard Cosell was until I talked to people who were
Oh,
alive when he
yeah,
was alive.
and the fame came two ways: those who liked him and those who hated him. And I'm almost, I don't know nobody ever took a poll, but probably was more famous for people who didn't like him
Yeah.
than the people who did. I
Yes.
mean, I'll tell you, he knew exactly what to do with Ali in terms of his own career.
Amazing. I know. And yeah,
Yeah,
look, when you're smart and you know it and you're adversarial and you know that even more,
right.
you get again the Ali Cosell, a fight unto itself. Yeah.
So 5 seconds left in the game. Do you believe in miracles? Yes! Unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, Al Michaels.
Do you and Al know each other?
So great question, because I only know Al insofar as I was at Kornheiser's house one day. I was in DC, and he was grilling. Kornheiser's grilling, if you can imagine this. He's grilling chicken in his backyard, and he has his glass of wine, and he gets a call, and he's like, "Hold on," and it's Al Michaels, and like he's just like calling to like chat, like whatever they talk about, whatever you guys talk about. I put you in this group of just like, these legends who just like talk bleep about things. I only know him through that. I'm like, I think I said,
Right.
"Hi, Al," in the background as Tony was like, cavorting. Yeah.
I've known Al a long, long time. He's terrific. He is an absolute golf addict, one of the worst I have ever seen. and he would describe it that way as well. But he loves the game. I mean, it's something else. And for him to say, worldwide, he's never had a vegetable in his life.
Yeah. What's that about?
I know. He's all meat. He's
I was
all
gonna.
meat.
I want to. If you let Al know that I want to. What I want to find out is how Al is alive.
Right. Exactly. But that's Al.
She is gone!
Yeah. No, that's Vince Scully.
Did you ever know Vin Scully?
I listened to him, but never. Did you? Of course you did.
Little bit. I knew Vin not really well, somewhat. Actually, I met him when he used to hang around Bel Air Country Club in LA. And so I used to see him once in a while. And I knew him there. And then he, of course, knew my father well.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, what it brings up to me is radio baseball broadcasters, to me, is the most intimate experience, I think, between listener and broadcaster there is.
I agree. I don't think it's close. I don't think it's close.
And I knew, and because I worked as an assistant to the Hall of Fame Washington broadcaster Bob Wolf, and we used to go I knew Kurt Gowdy, and I knew Vin, and I knew Kenny Coleman in Cleveland, and I knew Ernie Harwell in Detroit, and I knew all of these
people
great
who have awards named after them now. That's who you just listed.
Yeah, I mean, it was a time where, television was important, but radio was still there for people. And I can't tell you how many people would say, I'd turn off the sound and listen to the radio cast rather than the television cast.
Yeah, I mean, baseball, especially, and I'm friendly with some baseball announcers now, and the interplay with negative space, with silence, how to use that effectively, when to breathe.
Right.
You are sort of like matching your circadian rhythms with your audience, with the game. There's this sort of like cosmic syncing of rhythm that baseball is uniquely capable of.
Pictures with words. It's really something.
What Vin did that was unparalleled was he was lyrical in his description.
And he would make so much he'd have stories in the middle of pitches.
I know.
I mean, and nobody does that anymore. I mean, he would be talking about something about the pitcher or the batter or the catcher or the umpire, and there would be these great stories in between pitches.
Yes.
It
Yes.
was
It's
great.
It's hard to interweave narrative into play-by-play.
Right.
Then made it an art form. Also when he says, and look, I don't think he originated the quote, but I attribute it to him because I think he's the first person who said it. But he goes at one point, statistics are used much like a drunk uses a lamppost for support, not illumination. And I'm like, God, like that's
Yeah.
again, I'm sure he wasn't the originator, but like he just had that too. He had all of it in his quiver.
Okay, we got this last part of the show. It's called the 19th hole. You get a chance to ask me something,
Yes.
and I'll try to respond.
First question. So you co-owned a bar restaurant called Chatter, which I visited and ate at. It was you, it was Tony Kornheiser, it was Maryland basketball coach Gary Williams, and it was a socialite, Alan Bubis.
Yeah, right.
Rank them. Rank your co-owners.
The most hands-on was Kornheiser. The most critical, the most negative person about it all was Gary Williams, who constantly worried about how much it was going to cost. The socialite, Alan Bubis, who I have known since he was 15 years old, didn't give a shit about anything. And Kornheiser was there because he was doing his podcast. And I knew from the moment I got involved that this was going to be a failure.
I'm just bummed I can't go and visit there anymore.
Oh, God.
What a glorious, it flew so close to the sun.
Yeah.
All right. I burned one of those questions on just, I needed that.
That's all right.
For closure. Number 2, how often do you check the television ratings of your reruns?
Well, I check them every day because I get an email. and I'm proud of this moment that the repeats are almost, in terms of ratings, as big as the originals. So I am and the even better news is, I share in those revenues, which is nice.
Oh God. None of this surprises me.
No,
that's incredible. That's incredible.
Yeah.
I also know that you're just making sure you're beating Springer. I just know you're making sure you're beating Springer reruns.
Yeah. Jerry it was interesting. Jerry and I were very friendly, and he had the greatest line because people used to kind of take our shows and put them together and things like that in terms of, the edge of the envelope and pushing past all things that were decent. And he said to me, Maury, here's the thing. Your show is the real thing, and my show is wrestling.
And
that's how he described it.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Okay, that's great. That's great.
All right.
Okay, last question. One more. 3.
Yeah, sure.
When are you and Connie gonna do my show together?
My God, really?
I've been trying to.
This is it.
I've been trying to book you both for months.
Okay. All right. We're out in Montana. We come back after Labor Day. And so you and I and Connie will have a great confab at your place. Meanwhile, do you know, before we wrap up, I went on Levitard's show the other day. It's your pal, right?
Yeah, my benefactor. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's the John Skipper crazy
Meadowlark. Yep. Crazy
Meadowlark
all
company that you two are affiliated with. He has this thing on, I couldn't stand it. He says to me, he has a thing called, would you go to this person's funeral?
Oh yeah, I played that game.
Oh, you did play that game? So I really called him out on it because he said, well, you're good friends with Kornheiser. Would you go to his funeral? I said, yes. He says, well, I understand that you're not good friends with Wilbon. Would you go to it? I said, what are you talking about? Of course it'll be in Chicago. I said, I love Chicago. I'll be glad to go to Wilbon's funeral.
I would like it for the record that I too would attend Mike Wilbon's funeral. Maury, you and I are united on this
You got
front.
it.
Tell Levitard to go screw off. There is no ambiguity about our feelings on this matter.
Okay. Thanks so much. Good to see you. I'll see you in a couple of months, I guess.
I'm gonna see you in studio with your better half.
Thank you. Good
Thank
to
you,
see
Maury.
If you've had as much fun as I did, make sure you subscribe to On Par with Maury Povich on YouTube and tap that little bell so you don't miss a thing. And if you like to listen on the go, we're on Apple, Spotify, everywhere you get your podcast. Hit that follow button. I'll be back with more before you know it. On Par with me, Maury Povich, is brought to you by Mopo Productions, A Better Life Media, and Radley Studios, with executive producers, me, Maury Povich, Holly J. Mirabella, and Christian Thompson. Supervising producer Mike Bornasian, and directed by Mark Leibowitz.